Sehr gut. Sehr gut.
I'm a time traveler from the year 2025, and I've come here to kill you, Hitler.
Oh, not again. I'm never gonna have enough time to finish these paintings with all of these time travelers trying to kill me.
Well, I'm going to succeed.
Before you pull the trigger, can I just ask why? Why do all of you people want to kill me?
Isn't it obvious? I'm a progressive, a liberal, a fighter for social justice. And you are a fascist who implemented a reign of terror. And while the effects of your policies devastated the world for decades, soon we will be able to take back the White House, and we will be able to use the government to force people to follow our great ideas.
You want to use government power to force your ideas on the populace. Me too! That's fantastic!
What? No. Ugh. You and I have nothing in common. What I'm saying is there are people in our time with dangerous ideas, and we need to silence them.
Silencing those who disagree with you. I do that too! Oh, wunderbar! Oh, the Nazi movement will not die with me.
Don't give me that! I'm enlightened, and you're as bad as... well, as Hitler. Listen, what I'm trying to say is we are very close to implementing a utopia, as long as we can get rid of some certain undesirable people groups.
Yes, like the Jews.
Yes, like the Jews. Oh.
So, in the future, you also do not like the Jews?
Well, no. But we don't believe in segregating all the races like you do. I mean, except for, like, graduation ceremonies. And dorms. And hiring practices. Oh, and admissions policies. That sort of thing.
I, too, am a fan of the segregation. I'm sorry, I have to ask, is this a real firearm, or is this some kind of toy for kinder?
It's a flare gun. I'm trying not to support America's toxic gun culture. I'm a firm believer in gun control.
Gun control! This was one of my ideas, too. Ban them from the undesirables. Yes, look here. Oh, and your shirt. This is an organization founded by Margaret Sanger. Yes?
Wait, you know about Margaret Sanger?
Jawohl, of course. Oh, she's such a lovely person.
No. She's a fighter for reproductive rights, for women's empowerment,
and the eradication of undesirable populations by means of eugenics. Brilliant lady, very inspiring. I must use some of her ideas in our socialized healthcare system.
Socialized healthcare? That's not your thing. That's our thing.
No, it's very much my thing. Did you know that Nazi means National Socialist German Workers' Party? Nazi is just more catchy. Nazi. Just rolls off the tongue.
No. This can't be true. This has to be some sort of mistake. We are nothing alike. You're Adolf Hitler, evil right-wing fascist dictator, and I'm a feminist restorative justice advocate. And a vegetarian.
You're a vegetarian? Me too!
Okay, I am so confused right now. I came here with a clear goal in mind to kill the most evil man who I've ever lived. Besides Ronald Reagan. But now that I'm meeting you in person, you're not at all what I thought you were. And your painting is actually really good. What do you call it?
I call it Ein Reich ohne Juden.
Wow. I don't know what that means, but it sounds beautiful.
It does, doesn't it?
Hey folks, welcome to the program. How are you doing? Will you please do me a favor? Will you please kind of give me the finger? Yeah. Raise that finger, share this program. This program is, we do these at different times just so we can all catch up. It's called an Ask Me Anything. It doesn't matter if it's about politics, my personal life, inventions, exploration, my books, whatever the case may be, or just my opinion. ask me anything. And by the way, if you happen to be the regular hater watcher audience, come on, let's have a discussion. Let's air out our differences. What's your issue with me? Where am I wrong? Etc. And let's talk. Remember, we're all in this together, right? And when you think about that, we are all going to be affected by exactly the same things, but we can have different opinions. But it's only through dialogue that we can find common ground, right? Because we're all affected by the same things. Give you an example. With gold has gone through the roof, with the system changeover that's coming, I'm telling you it's coming, where we are going to go to a digital system. Now, this has nothing to do with whether you're liberal or conservative or pray to trees or pray to stones or pray to air, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. Race, color, creed. It has to deal with the fact you are a functioning citizen, right? And I think when the changeover comes, all of the stuff I hear and that I'm watching is there's going to be an adjustment. I don't know exactly how it works, but when all of this stuff was going on, going to the euro globally and everything, it predicted there's going to be like a 32% adjustment. The way I understood it is the system will say, well, this is what it takes to manage and administer it and how it's going to be done. So they're going to take exactly what you have in the bank. They're going to scale it down 32%, which goes right to the government like an extra tax payment. And that's just going to be the way it is. So everything balances out. And I guess we cover more debt for the government, overspending. These are the things that worry me. And even though I'm a technology guy, folks, when I think about the control that technology has over all of us, this is why I do things in my program. Like I'm asking you to go to jovanlovesgold.com and, get your free gold and silver kit just to find out why. Because think about this. In a grand consolidation, which I think will happen, we kind of have no say. And so I'm telling you, if you have a 401k or an IRA or a retirement savings account, you need to go to jovanlovesgold.com. It's why I partnered with Goldco. And I gave you a story a while back that a sheriff went to pull out of his retirement to put his daughter through college and found out that the way the state had done it, you can't access your retirement for any reason unless you leave. So you either quit and you kind of disqualify for retirement, or it forces you to leave early and take a discount on your retirement because you have vested. That's a crock of crap. It's your money. So these things kind of bug me, and I'm just asking you to get ahead of the curve. But I sit back and I watch these things. If you're new to my program for whatever reason, and you don't know my particular technology background, in other words, why I can sit here in election stuff and say, it's not the machines, folks. Let me just give you a quick snippet of my technology background for anybody who's new so you understand where I come from when I share things with you.
Great ideas are brought to life by great thinkers. One such thinker, Jovan Pulitzer, has contributed over 500 patents to our technological world. The United States Patent Office shows that as many as 40 new inventions have stemmed from each of his pioneering patents. Today, built upon his incredible success, Jovan Hutton Pulitzer innovates in the areas of virtual and augmented reality, data analytics and global data platforms, nanoanalytics, healthcare systems, mobile streaming communications, as well as monetization technologies. Some of his groundbreaking innovations are right in front of you every single day. A barcode has long been just a bunch of lines on the bottom of a box of cereal. But today, every product, article of commerce, and even people have a unique identifiable code. Everything in the world has become interconnected, and like magic, we can use our device's camera to read barcodes and unique QR codes. A now ubiquitous technology that Jovan ideated and patented. For a long time, software was purchased on floppy disks and CDs, and it was a hassle when there was an update to install. Today's devices know when there is an update available, and then automatically take care of that behind the scenes for us. Another one of Jovan's patents that we take for granted every day. Several years ago, viewing the same website from a computer to a laptop to a mobile device always seemed to make it look wonky and broken. Thanks to one of Jovan's patented ideas, websites fit perfectly into the screen you're looking at. That's what we call responsive design. We all remember when taking a toll road meant digging around your car for loose change to pay the attendant. What a traffic jam. These days, manned toll booths are a rarity. A tag in our vehicles linked to our credit card automates the payment process. Our inventor Jovan Pulitzer innovated the device that lives in your car and the system to capture and process that message.
Okay, that may just give you kind of a little briefing of how my mind thinks about these things, etc. But I'm telling you, in this digital age, and I get a lot of flack at times having invented that, Q platform where you see our QR codes, etc., that it connects, because some people say, it's the mark of the beast. Oh, they said that about freckles. But technology can be a good thing or it can be a horrible thing. I have to tell you, I am terrified if they move voting to mobile, which they're trying to do. I want you to understand one thing. You do understand that when it comes to the mobile field, you're under the control of two companies, Apple and Google. You don't get an app on the platform unless they approve it. Most people don't understand that. A developer doesn't just develop an app and put it on the platform, okay? You got to go through a whole approval process with Apple or Android or whatever, and it basically gives them the power to stop certain things. That's why you'll see some apps that might be on Android that are not available on iTunes. And people don't understand that. So technology can be great. Technology is not great when it's a centralized power. And even though it can block most of the things that are wrong with our elections, it can be used wrong. And it's just the way it goes. So this is a program called Ask Me Anything. I don't know why at the moment, just so you know, I don't know why at the moment that on my YouTube channel, I can't comment back, but I saw a couple of questions on YouTube. Let me pop up this banner for you. Let me see. Let me get here. Let me go here. Maybe you'll see it better there. There's the link. And there were two interesting questions. Mike Klein on YouTube and Squirrel Daddy. You're welcome to come on live and discuss your questions. Those would be interesting. Great for the audience. So all you have to do is turn on your camera and make sure you've got sound and join me. You'll use that link. It'll drop you right into my studio. Those are two that would be really good just to talk about the open. Somebody asked, am I a Zionist? Well, let's discuss that. Let's discuss what that means to you and what it means to me, right? What it means to me. And let's kind of see if we match up on that. Anyway, this is called an Ask Me Anything. And this is where you get your chance to do that. I'm an open book, right? I'm an open book. And you can ask me the questions you want to ask me. Come on, let's do it. And there's questions I can do just from chat. I'm, watching across all the people, right? Like Gnarly Doge 88 from Culpeper, Virginia, over on Gitter. Just pop in. Some of your questions I can actually put on the screen, right? And we'll share it with the audience. First off, let me show you an interesting video I came across. And then let's just kind of talk about it while you're thinking, right? What are you thinking? Now, take a look.
Okay, this is going to sound insane, but you need you to go with me on this because the math checks out. On October 30th, 2025, 6.2 billion people are going to experience a cosmic consciousness shift simultaneously, and I can prove it with simple math. First, you need to know about the Earth's heartbeat, the Schumann resonance, 7.83 hertz. That's the frequency that the Earth vibrates at. Here's the crazy part. When you are in a deep meditative state, your brain literally syncs with 7.83 hertz. We are literally synced to the Earth's frequencies. But on October 30th, something unprecedented is about to happen. 3 massive events are converging. Number 1, the sun is at its solar maximum, the most active it's been in 20 years. Solar flares, magnetic pole reversals, the works. Number 2, an interstellar object called 3I Atlas reaches its closest point to the sun that exact day. We're talking about a city-sized object from another star system. And number 3, the Earth's magnetic field is at its absolute weakest point in the cycle. Here's where the math gets wild. When these 3 things hit at once, the Earth's frequency of 7.83 hertz could be amplified 10 times or more. So instead of 7.83 hertz, you're looking at 78 hertz hitting your brain. Your brain will have no choice but to sync up. That's just how basic entrainment works. It's neuroscience. Here's the math that'll blow your mind. Research shows that you need a square root of 1% of the population to create global change. For 8 billion people, that's 90,000 minds synchronizing at the same time. But with this electromagnetic disruption, we're looking at 2 billion people syncing up simultaneously. That's 22,000 times what we need for critical mass. The mathematics of consciousness says that this will create a global field effect. Your normal consciousness operates at about a 20 hertz normal bandwidth. That's your everyday beta brainwaves. But when Earth's frequency explodes, your brain goes to 100 hertz bandwidth or more. That means you'll access gamma waves, 40 hertz to 100 hertz, which is the frequency associated with higher consciousness, enlightenment, and even psychic abilities. So let's break down the numbers. 6.2 billion people, that's 76% of humanity, will be affected by this electromagnetic shift. Of those, about 365 million have natural electromagnetic sensitivities like me. And roughly 43 million people are predicted to achieve a genuine transcendent state during the peak hours. This isn't woo-woo stuff. This is just math based on electromagnetic fields affecting human consciousness. The peak moment happens exactly at 11:44 a.m. Universal Time on October 30th, 2025. That's when the interstellar object reaches its closest point to the sun, but the effects will build for hours before and hours after. From 6
I want you to think about that. And now I don't know where you come down on all this stuff. Okay, but have any of you been following this space event that's supposedly supposed to take place, right? And it is in fact, you can confirm this. It is a weird event. They're going to have interstellar comet 31 Atlas is going to be the closest approach to the sun, and it is in fact going to occur at the same maximum cycle. It's called cycle 25. It is going to happen. Okay. It's kind of considered a cross between a space event and a sunspot or solar event. Coronal mass ejections. Isn't it funny? Those mass ejections, he didn't think about that mass ejection coinciding with the mass ejection of illegals in the country. What do you think about stuff like that? Right? What do you think about the stuff like that? Right? Do you think it affects the earth? Do you think it affects you? Here's a little bit of insight you might not have known, right? Nikola Tesla, incredible inventor that never really got credit from the system or people. Edison tended to steal other people's ideas. Nikola was probably the most original great, right? Anyway, did you know that Nikola Tesla slept with magnets and or magnetic coils under his head, under his pillow? Did you know that? Any of you know that? Yes, he did. Supposedly, it is supposed to the magnetic resonance. Now, I haven't tried this. One time I've tried the magnetic stuff in my life, and I tried one of the mattress toppers, right? That had all the little magnets embedded in them, and I slept on it. I do remember having very vivid dreams that night, but when I got up in the morning, it was almost as if I couldn't move. My body hurt in every possible joint in my body. And I don't know if it was because the magnet's pulling on my body, but it hurt in an incredible way. So for me, that was a no-go, right? Was a no-go. But magnetic fields do influence what's called neural firings. And so this guy, even though it's kind of odd, that is going to happen. There is going to be a different pull on that date. And yes, it will be interesting to see, in fact, how does it actually come into play? Here's a question from down under, Zodman. I get this question all the time. Okay. Mashiro Hara did invent what you have now know to be the QR code, which was called Dentsu Wave. Dentsu Wave. The company that spread that was one of the largest corporations in the world called Sumitomo. Sumitomo was one of my investors, one of my key investors. When the 2D, it was called a 2D, when the 2D barcode was invented, it was invented as an inventory item. They kind of used them by building Toyota cars, etc. And it had just started being used in the manufacturing process. But here's what it meant. It was a localized lookup. Localized lookup. Just like when you go into a grocery store and you buy a loaf of bread. You could have, and I'll use Zod, this won't make sense for you, my friend, down under, but you in the South, in the U.S., we have a grocery store called Winn-Dixie, or we might have Albertsons. Now, technically, there would be a barcode on the loaf of bread, but at Winn-Dixie, it might be 99 cents a loaf. And at Albertsons, it might be 98 cents a loaf. And so at the grocery level with barcodes, what would happen is when that barcode came across the system, it would basically know what to charge the customer, would go into the company's current inventory and say, okay, the inventory is now down one loaf of bread. And then it could trigger things like if the company was getting low on bread, because all the cashiers aren't talking together, and they realized there was a run on bread, it might trigger somebody in logistics or accounting or whatever to order more bread and get it in the warehouse. Well, it's the same thing with 2D barcodes, right? It would literally tell the systems where these things were, etc., right? Or how many they had, or what could you do with it, or hey, you need to reorder. So that's the world of barcodes, and that's the world of what originally happened with DensoWave. It was inventorying. So about that time, I'm doing all of my work completely separate. And if you look at yourself, think about yourself right now. If in fact you were to look at yourself, you are numbers. You're an amalgam of a bunch of different numbers. Maybe your passport, maybe your ID, maybe your employment ID, your social security number, your driver's license number, etc. You have a tremendous array of numbers that are associated with you. So I realized early on that this thing, which they were calling back then the information superhighway, what they're calling the information superhighway is going to come. And then I realized everything, and I mean everything in the world, is going to work off of these codes. Every single thing. It doesn't matter what it is. Every single thing in the world is going to work off of codes. And so when I realized everything would work off of codes, meaning you don't need to know the numbers underneath, you would just know, like, you know, yahoo.com. It was that the internet was going to be keyworded to help you understand it. And the way it would help you understand it is by helping you understand a word instead of the numbers, because people have a very hard time remembering all the numbers underneath. Like I remember my very first childhood phone number. I actually don't know my social security number. Now, it's an interesting fluke. I suffered a traumatic brain injury, which is why a lot of times in my cadence and talking, I have to slow down because my brain will go faster than my mouth can get it out. I've got to force it to go back into sync. Those were some of the idiosyncratic things that happen as a result of that injury. Well, I can't even remember that number. So when I understand the internet's going to work this way, I basically go, well, wait a minute. Okay, there's keywords, but technically there's only so many words in the world. And for it to really encompass the universe of how much information out there, they're going to have to start making up new words. And that's almost an impossible feat because our word universe is finite. And so I said, why don't I just take the infinite world of numbers and make the number actually communicate to the information world at large? And so what I actually did, I'll kind of show you a graph so you understand. Let me pop this up on my screen. Hang on. I got to go just a little bit smaller because I get this question quite a bit. Let me share this with you. So, wrong screen. And so at this span, there were a lot of people working on inventory items. We were coming to a dense world of the barcode universe, that the barcode universe was running out of numbers, right? If you had a 5-digit barcode, you can only have X amount of unique number combinations, and then you're out of digits. Does that make sense? And so I saw this coming, and what I did was go, I've got to expand or change this world because I think it's going to be code driven. So here's all of the different codes you've seen in different iterations, but I'm talking about barcodes right in the middle of my screen. And you can see on those, let me see if I can keep on pumping it up. Hang on. Ooh, wrong screen. One sec. Hang on. Give me a minute. Ooh, dang it. Dang it. Let me go right in those barcodes right in the middle of your screen. You can see there's basically only a certain amount of numbers. In the UPC3, which is right in the center, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You've got the left, the C is on, the right is off. So I realized there was going to be a problem in the universe as this thing called the internet came. And so the QR code, where that comes from is I had called my software C, the letter C, R, the letter R for C hour, and then Q. I started calling them Q. Sumitomo was my partner, and I'm working in this universe here. And I was asked, can you make any code read? Can you make any code now work with the internet? So where the Sumitomo codes are Dentsu Wave codes, they only worked in inventory. Do you follow what I'm saying? They only worked when they were doing inventory in and inventory out. Hang on, I'm trying to adjust my screen. I screwed it up. And so there was a limited universe. So nothing in the world talked to the world. Everything only talked to the company that used it, how they were using it. And I realized this thing called the internet is going to come about and the whole world's going to open. So what I set out to do is to transform these codes to become a communication network. Actually, it's called a vast neural network that does it. And basically taught them, you are now not an inventory item. You are now a destination on the internet. You following me so far? You are a destination on the internet. Now, in this first top you're seeing here, these are just all kinds of iterations of what happened. Dang it, I got to quit pushing the wrong button. Of what happened in the internet world. So kind of here's my telemetry that will help you out. The first barcode was actually created in 1974. It was a supermarket checkout for Troy's Marsh Market. Okay. Now, this is kind of giving a timeline of where I am at the same time. So 1974 barcodes came out. So I did not create barcodes. That's not me. 1991, the August 6, 1991, the World Wide Web became publicly available. Now, in 92 was when we got dial-up internet access in 1992. Now, at 1994, simultaneous event here, in Japan, Dentsu Wave created a 2D barcode, and it was to track vehicle manufacturing. This is also the same time that Amazon started, by the way. Now, in a 2D barcode, basically going from this little limited information, it was just a new way to read the information in a 2D format. Now, at the same time, in 1994, I was the very first person in the United States to ever put a web address in a national TV or print ad. I'm kind of trying to learn how do people use this thing called the internet and will they? And it was really good to do a test of it because in 94, there were so few people really using it. And so I knew I'd get true empirical data with such limited users. I would see just in the scope of things, will people actually, if they just see it appear in a print ad or they see it appear in a television ad or promotion, will they actually go to it? Very, very small users, okay? And so that's 94. And so this is where these two things merge because over here at Dentsu Wave and Sumitomo, they ultimately become a big investor in my company. So it was about inventory items. So yes, that 2D barcode, here it is right here. This is the Dentsu Wave, okay? They called it that because you can kind of see it looks like ripples or waves in water. And of course, in Japan, water is a big deal. So in 94, I started doing it. 95, America Online reached 3 million users. That's when America Online is really doing some big push. And that's when I started working on what I called would be an internet shortcut because I saw the web addresses were going to be growing too fast. They would be too long. Remember the old GeoCities crap? Anybody remember that? I mean, freaking web addresses were long. I realized this ain't going to work unless we can shorten it. And so that's what I'm working on. That's the same time where Netscape went public. They achieved a $5.4 billion market cap. That was the first big one to do it. That's what started the craze and all of the valuations of the tech companies. At that time, by 95, only 0.096 of the world population actually used the internet. It was a very tiny fraction. So in 96, I began going, okay, what can we do here? Because this thing is going to grow. People are going to adopt it. Remember when you had to type in http:// and all that other stuff where it didn't work? And that's when I started experimenting with, okay, I need all codes to work, and I need to create a universal code that has more data than everything in it. So that was in 96. And so what I did was what was called the first DNS transfer server. DNS basically means that's a domain name server. When you type in a name, it will go to that server. And so you understand 1996 in the scope of things, there were only about 100,000 websites globally. Apple was losing money hand over fist, just hand over fist. Steve Jobs still had not come back to Apple at that time. So the same thing in 96. I took two young kids. See this, Jeff Harris and Brandon Brown? They were 16 years old. Two kids, best buddies. They were 16 years old, came from highly dysfunctional families. And I met these two young guys through my work, basically building a dial-up company, kicking the shit out of AOL, being the Fox Internet News correspondent. So I met these two kids, and they wanted to do coding, and I said, I'll give you a chance. I literally moved them into my office, into my television office where the server racks were, where we sent my television show all around the globe through the microwave and satellite hookup, gave them a car so they could get back and forth. And these kids, who now have incredible careers, and by the way, still work for me to this day, doing projects, they started developing. And what happens is that's where we began to understand how to do the ARS servers, and we began testing it. Okay? So in 97 is now the world has 1.7% of the internet, and you got introduced to this thing called wireless, right? So in 97, we got 802.11 Wi-Fi standard. We've got the PNG, right, which are the good image files. And we got, that was when Sergey and Larry got the domain Google. So that was 97. For me, over here in 97, I began really blowing out the patents and everything, knowing, okay, this is going to be the future as this grows, because I'm watching technology move with it. And as technology gets faster, I understand people are going to need to consume more. And so that's where I start developing what is now known as the whole platform of Scan Commerce, Scan Connect, e-commerce, commerce, etc. things, right? So I'm working on that to do the first barcode readers. You know me for the cat, but this is the ultimate little device you see on the right that would ultimately go on your keychain. So at that time, Windows 98 was introduced. 3.6% of the world was using the internet. We just got DVDs. And at that time, 40% of US homes, 42% of US homes had computers. Now, to make all of this work, I realized, well, okay, I can make barcodes mean destinations on the internet instead of an inventory item like a regular barcode. Like I didn't own the barcodes. Like regular barcodes, they're already on books and tapes and whatever, and you got this 2D barcode coming out. That's where that world is trying to expand because the world's growing. Remember, my job is to make them all communicate. And so if I'm going to put out a scanner for you to start doing this, you got to prime the pump. And so you had to scan everything. So we had to go in and we manually, hand touched, we had to take all of the 16.8 million product codes that existed, and we had to manually give them a destination. That's how all this thing works now. You don't think about it, but it all hits a server. And so that was the population of basically the big switch. And so the first wiki came in 1999. The Melissa virus came out. That's when you learned about Trojan viruses. There was about $80 million in damages. This is when we first get USB flash drives, etc. On the right, now my company's maturing. It's called Digital Convergence. We were one of the first companies to ever become a billion-dollar company, not like Netscape by going public, but I built a billion-dollar company privately. And that's when we first released the scannable Q codes, CRQ plugin, okay? Now, the first people to ever get one of the business cards, where you now see them on everybody's business cards or every product, the very first 3 people to actually get a business card that were enhanced was Steven Spielberg, David Geffen, and Jeffrey Katzenberg. Spielberg was one of my partners in this to get all of this out, because he saw the benefit in movies and DVDs where you get more information. And that's when I released keystroke automation technology. I was telling somebody this the other day. Interesting story. What I had actually invented to be the eyes, I called keystroke automation technology, which by default is CAT, K-A-T. I'm in Chicago. I'm at the Sears building, and I'm meeting with the chairman, Arthur Martinez, of Sears. And we're having a discussion about, hey, here's what's going to happen in the mail order business and catalogs and stuff. You've got to have to connect them to the internet. You're going to have to do a thing. Most people don't know this. With your credit card to work in the shopping cart and remember you, those are all my patents as well. And so I'm talking with Sears, and it was the chairman of Sears at the time that said cat. And he says, son, don't you realize that that's a cat? I go, yeah. He says, well, you got a mouse on a computer and you've invented the cat. He says, you should just call this thing a cat, change the K to a C, but it's keystroke automation technology. So it was Arthur Martinez was the one that actually came up with the moniker for the cat. So we released it. We had a million registered device installs in 30 days. And so everybody's blowing and going. We're just huge and massive, okay? So we get to 2000. I am going to do a public offering. Everybody's telling me you're going to be the next Bill Gates, right? And then, of course, March 11, the crash came, etc. Everything went to hell in a handbasket. We had already had the wireless key fob. That's it up here, you see. We already had the Microsoft Mousecat combo. We had a pen, etc., because we knew we're going to make this work with cameras. And Sumitomo is going to release, where the first release was, you didn't see it, was in Japan, right? So that's 2000. The dot-com crash happens. Over here, we had to shut down. You know, payroll's a bitch. But in the internet age, my burn rate, that's how much you spend each month on your payroll, my burn rate, I had just trimmed it back from $9 billion to $2 million. So my burn rate, $7 million each pay period. That's a huge burn rate. So I'm cutting back. We had to shutter, just like a lot of things happening. And so we knew it was coming to mobile phones. And so what we did is I and my partner investors, we went back and we bought all of our patents back, my patents back, out of the shuttered company. And I made sure they kept going. And then by 2008, right, we have one of the largest portfolios in the world, because now it's a massive portfolio that all the manufacturers of mobile phones and mobile devices use. And then in 2009, and that's pretty relevant, most people don't understand the history, only 18% of the US at the time had smartphones. And that's when we really began the campaign, once the patents were matured and everything else. Where now I think the current numbers, 15 billion global wireless devices use it. Hundreds and hundreds of companies license the patents. And scans of codes, which everybody told me I was crazy, I was a nut, I was a whack job, telling them they're going to scan to get to the internet versus type in the web addresses, will now, on a slow day, be about 2 billion uses a day. On a high day, will be about 66 billion uses a day. I know that's weird, but I hope that kind of was it Zod? Was it you that asked that? That's the history of it. And so that's where the confusion comes in because of the similarities in the name. It all started at the same time. We're kind of all starting together, but one was a very inventory centric, trying to solve the corporate world. And I come out and say, hey, no, this is going to be the platform for the world. Right? Any of our guys on YouTube going to join me? Let's see. Okay. Hang on. I'm not sure I understand this. Let me see. When you were going to get out of Arizona audit mode, and when are you going to get out of the Arizona audit mode and have a judiciary sentence on the ballots, fudgers? I remember you saying you were about to do a Michigan audit. Okay, let me address that. When it comes to the Arizona audit, my team and I are still in audit mode. We will not leave audit mode. The way the rules read is when you close out your report, it begins an interesting time clock. And when that time clock runs, you kind of have a statute of limitations. And in the legal field, you come into something that's called latches. Well, you knew it, you didn't do anything about it. And so we have stayed permanently in audit mode, which is why we have to fight to keep this alive. It's wildly expensive. I can tell you right now, there's 5 or 6 other things that we know technology-wise we can discover and prove, but I haven't pulled the trigger on coding them yet because I don't want to trigger the time clock, and it's official when you start documenting it, whatever that we do it. So yes, we are continually in audit mode. Now let's go back to Michigan. At the time in Michigan, we had committed to do a full forensic audit of Michigan and announced it. We were going to do it. So I fly up to Michigan, meet with Matt DePerno, and I got a whole room there, and it's a bunch of lawmakers and Patrick Colbeck and all these other people from Michigan. And I'm sitting in the room, and I learned things that I didn't want to learn. And here's what I mean. When we're going to pre-fund an audit to the tune of $1.5 million, pre-fund it, because we knew we needed to really get on Michigan. So we had announced that. Sitting in that room amongst Patrick Colbeck, who is now Mike Lindell's Election Crime Bureau, an argument broke out in the room. I'm kind of sitting back watching this, and it's all these different Michigan lawmakers and Michigan wannabe lawmakers that are supposedly conservatives running. And the argument in the room of it was, who gets credit? It wasn't what we would find. It wasn't what we could fix. It wasn't any of that. It was who's going to get credit. And these lawmakers are arguing. So it became like, who's going to get known for spearheading the Michigan audit? Because it would get them on TV and it would do interviews. That was the lawmakers. Then all of the little petty factions of election integrity started arguing, well, who gets to control the money? Who's going to handle it? Who's going to do this? And then we had a representative of the GOP there. And in Michigan, you needed X number of signatures to force this, to force what we wanted was a full forensic audit. The GOP would help get the names we needed. 1 million names was the goal, signatures. If we paid them $20 a name in advance. So here's Michigan, knowing their elections went bad, and Michigan GOP would help us get the names we needed if we paid $20 a name in advance for them to get the side. And I'm going to hold on 1 second. I'll get back to this other one. And so that was when I realized, why would the GOP in Michigan, knowing they have a problem, want $20 million just to get the names? And so it kind of hung in this limbo. And then Patrick Colbeck and stuff, they started, well, if you're going to put $1.5 million in, send $1.5 million into us now, and we'll, get the Michigan public to pay the rest. And I said no. And I called Patrick Byrne, who was doing it as well. And I said, put in $1.5 million, it's going to disappear. They won't do anything. They're fighting over it. Who gets to get credit? Who gets to be the spokesperson? Who gets to be the lawmaker leading it? And I said, they don't care about a freaking audit. It's just fucking politics. And I told them what the GOP said. So I said, in my book, this is dead. And that killed it. And that's why we didn't get a Michigan audit. Michigan supposed patriots killed it themselves, and so did the Michigan GOP, which is the only reason we didn't get it. Now, Skip Sonnet says, so you're in perpetual audit mode that doesn't answer who might be an eligible plaintiff to utilize your information in a lawsuit. I don't decide that. And I can't be the plaintiff. I have no standing to be the plaintiff. My team has no standing to be the plaintiff. The standing would be the citizens that felt they were robbed of an election. So for my work, which is Maricopa County, Arizona, where does the plaintiff need to be? Maricopa County, Arizona. And so my job's not to answer who's the eligible plaintiff. That's up to who's willing to be and take on the eligible plaintiff status. And right now it comes down either to Maricopa or an administrative group, one withstanding at least, and a combination going at a higher level, coming through an investigation. Let's say at the White House, they open an investigation and then it comes to light, or yes, a class action, which could also bring it to light. By the way, J-Lo, thank you from the bottom of our heart for supporting our work. And by the way, if I miss certain questions, don't worry, I'll try to get to them, right? And I'll try to answer the ones I could do. Somebody asked, am I a Zionist? Yeah, by default. Do you even know what a Zionist is? That you should have a entitlement to your own country, right? Based on your own traditions, etc. Right? Yeah. Is Zionist a bad word? No. Is Zionist a dirty word? No. Is Zionist an evil word? No. It's a biblical word. But of course, you might have been listening to bullshit on the net, and your local auto mechanic who now does a podcast about all things religious might have told you Zionist was a bad word. Okay, let's see. So Zod, I hope I answered you thoroughly on that. A lot of people have confusion over it, and it's just the confusion of Xerox versus copy. Basically, some things become synonymous with the name, and a Q, the word Q, became synonymous. The ultimate expandable platform to really make it all work, not just make it communicate with the internet, it had to be even expanded further. That's why you have 3D. So a QR code is a 3D code which has Googles of possible combinations and will never run out of information. Good question. So here, let me get to this one. And it'll kind of answer your own questions about how the mechanics of all this work. Dr. Ricky says, why would you not have standing? You were screwed just as badly as the people in Arizona, Michigan, the whole USA. Okay. What do you need me to be? Do you need me to being somebody that brings a lawsuit, which then means I can't be the expert witness? Or do you need me to be the expert witness coming in with no bias and just factual information, presenting the facts? In which role am I most valuable? Because you can't have both. In which role, to the world or otherwise, am I more valuable? And that's as the expert witness. It's a very interesting thing that most people don't understand, and a lot of people don't tell you. You cannot be both. Also, you can't be an expert witness and do it for free. Did you know that? You cannot, in the court's eyes, be considered an expert witness giving expert testimony if, in fact, you did the work for free. Why? It's considered bias. And therefore, the other side can say, well, you're biased. You must be biased because you did all this millions of dollars of work free. And so what you have to do as an expert witness is you have to be paid the going rate of what an expert witness is, figure out how many hours of work it is, and be decided by contract. Then you are, in fact, an expert paid for your expertise. Most people don't even understand that, right? Period. You must be an expert witness. An expert witness delivers facts, not opinion. A volunteer can have an opinion, but the court does not decide on opinions. It has to decide it on expert witness fact. What did you discover? How was it discovered? Was it discovered off of facts, figures, or materials related to the actual event? Can your methodology be reproduced? Would your methodology produce the same results? Therefore, can it be tested and validated? That's what an expert witness is. That's how it works. And so think about a lot, and I'll give you a good example. Think about somebody coming in that is a person who does polls. Now, by default, what's a poll? Well, it's an opinion gathering, statistical analysis of opinions. Now, the poller can kind of say, well, this is what it really means, but it's still opinion. That can't be used in court. That cannot be used in court. You also, one of the things when you look under the radar, you also find a lot of people say, well, I found this and I found this and I found this. A good example would be Shelby Bush in Arizona in the Kerry Lake trial. Shelby Bush, who is a medical or dental office manager. Medical or dental office manager. Right? I think it's something like that. We'll just call her a office manager. Right? And it's hard for me to respond to the YouTube stuff, but I'll get over there in a minute. So they decide to put her on the witness stand and present her. And she is there to present, here is what we found, because she was technically the auditor of the Kerry Lake stuff. Here is what we found. As soon as they bring her into court as a witness, an objection is placed. The objection is to the court, this is not an expert witness. The Kerry Lake side, they had Shaggy and Scooby-Doo representing them, and Shaggy says, well, she did the audit. And the opposing side asked the judge to evaluate, is this an expert witness? Well, no, it's not an expert witness. Basically, she had no experience, professional or otherwise, leading up to the point outside doing it, and therefore she can't offer a professional opinion. She had no experience in it. And so the judge, right? The judge was able to disqualify her properly and legally. You can't testify to this. You're not qualified. In fact, you're woefully underqualified. Now, you have to ask yourself in the Kerry Lake stuff, why did Shaggy, otherwise known as Blim, put out those type of people? Why did they decide that type of auditor? It's because the system's crafty. They don't want somebody coming in, and I'll give you an example. Myself, it'd be very hard to challenge me as an expert witness, but let's say they challenged me as an expert witness sitting there, and they said something like, you're a podcaster. Well, the side, like defending Kerry would have said, and explain your resume. So I'd go through my resume. I have patents in every country in the world. I have several hundred patents. My technology on how these platforms work is on 15 billion mobile devices. The patents, the ballots themselves in Maricopa have unique QR codes on them, including the envelopes. Those codes work specifically because 207 of my patents, and so I know how that whole platform works. Those 15 billion users of my devices predominantly swipe paper on the code, put it, code, or take a picture to get to it. So I understand the dynamics of paper, routing, counting, tallying, which is what it is. And I am personally the only person in the United States of America that has looked at 2 million general election ballots, 189 million individual voted ovals. That's why I'm an expert on this topic. Now you can understand the juxtaposition. they wouldn't be able to disqualify me. And so what happened is they put people on that they knew the court would never accept the testimony because they're not an expert in what they talk about. And that's part of this game that's played. Let me see. I'm going to make sure I answered everyone. So I got that one in standing. The ones I can capture, I'll put up. Don't have standing. Here you go. Here's the other one. Liberty Mom, I'll repeat my question from YouTube here. Jovan, did you see Stephen Gardner's podcast with guest Gary Bernstein? What's your opinion? I don't have one. I love Stephen Gardner. He's the bomb. I do not watch anybody else's programs, even people I love and respect. Why? Here's why. Let's go back to audit mode. Back in audit mode, one of the scandals that came out was the Stop the Steal movement. If you put me on the stand, and at the time how they attacked people, you were doing this stuff saying the big lie that the elections were stolen and whatever. And I said, no, I've never said that. Well, you said it was the machines. And I said, no, I've never involved the machines in my work. I don't give a shit about the machines. Here's my testimonies that I don't care about the machines. Well, you were Stop the Steal. I said, I don't even know what Stop the Steal is. I've never watched or known anybody to say Stop the Steal on anything I'm watching or been coached on anything Stop the Steal because I don't watch anybody else's programming. Now, see what that does is that basically in the court's eyes makes me non-biased. So I don't watch anybody's stuff. I've never watched a General Flynn interview. I've never watched any of the Mike Lindell interviews. I've never watched any of the other people. It's the machines. I don't. I see your chatter and I address things in chatter as an expert. But do I watch them? Do I do any of that? No. And so to answer that question about what would I say about any interviews is I have nothing to say because I don't watch them. I love Roseanne to death. Don't watch them. Victor Davis Hanson, friend and been on, but I don't watch his stuff. I can see quotes and stuff that come across through the general public, which I can say, well, I've just seen it in the general public. I know what it is, but I don't watch it. Why don't I watch it? Because my commitment is to the United States of America and this country, no matter how long this takes to get to the end point. And I'm not willing to compromise myself and fall into that. Now, when I am bringing those people on my program, that's a different scenario. See, because I'm not bringing them on as an auditor, I'm bringing them on as somebody who talks about politics, and I want their opinion on politics. That's a whole different scenario. But in imbibing in the content, don't do it. I focus on my expertise. Somebody asked John Wick. I fucking love the John Wick movies. Has any of you seen The Ballerina yet? The version of the John Wick with the ballerina, Anna, whatever her name is, cutie. If any of you seen the movie, the John Wick, right, etc. Western Civil's the best. Attorney named Gary Fielder started class action lawsuit after 2020. Haven't seen much. Don't know the name, etc. Somebody asked, carrot cake or cheesecake? Personally, I like carrot cake flavored cheesecakes. That's a hard one. I love good carrot cake with a lot of carrot in it with good coffee, right? But damn, a cheesecake? Love that too. Okay, hang on. Let me look across the... Okay. Hey, Victor, farmer from Earth, still trying to. What balance in political campaigns should there be between old school ground game canvassing and digital collections of voter intentions? Very good question. I think by default it should be 50-50. Let me tell you why. You can't get away from the technology now. But I love the good old fashioned ground game. Right? And in the ground game, I think it's important for them to see a candidate's face and to talk to people and endorsement. So I think they go hand in hand, but I like things like the little doorknob hangers. That's just how people respond. And so I think good old fashioned getting out, putting boot to ground is all phenomenal, and you should work them hand in hand, meaning your digital game should mirror and reinforce your ground game. Your ground game should push people to go to your digital game. And that's how they should work together. And I think a lot of people don't do that. And so let's talk about ground game, digital game combo. Door hangers in the neighborhoods, maybe where you're running for office. I did this for my dad when he ran for state rep. Put it on the door hangers, go to the neighborhood you want to go to and get there, have great bill, put a Q code on there or a web address and say, if you want to know the 10 facts my dad Bobby's focusing on, go here. And you jump them over to the digital side. Katusha, Jovan, can the volunteers of the Maricopa audit talk about what they saw, or do non-disclosures keep them from doing that? I couldn't tell you if the volunteers for the Maricopa audit had non-disclosures. I do not know. I didn't request it. I requested the opposite. The only thing they cut out of my audit plan was, here's how it would work. I'm going to take you through this real quick. And this is the only thing in my entire plan that they did not do. I designed the audit to be Democrat, Independent, and Republican. Democrats told people, if you participate, we're going to blackball you. So they can say bipartisan. It's bullshit. The way it was designed was, when a box comes to the table and they're working through it, a batch, 200 ballots at a time, when they work through a batch, okay, as the batch gets to the end of the table, I wanted runners basically that would go to, let's say, 6 people at the table, and they would say, in that batch, did you notice anything irregular? And they would record the person. Then, while the next batch is being done, you'd have a team that would transcribe out that affidavit. Then that runner would come back as the next batch is going, show the people the affidavit, okay, and then have them sign, and it'd be notarized. It'd be a certified jurat. Now, why would I do that? If you look at, and we'll just use the numbers, 1,000 people, right, doing this process, and you got 6 people at a table, and let's just divide it up equally amongst 20 tables, okay? You're going to have 100,000 ballots go through that station. That means each station would have 600,000 certified legal jurats times 20 tables. And what I wanted to do was to be able to show the courts, batch by batch, box by box, here's what people saw, their own interpretation of what they saw, wrong paper, wrong size, this looks printed on a computer. That is the only thing that the Maricopa GOP and stuff took out of my methodology, because they realized I would have oogly googly millions, right? Millions of certified jurats. Now, here's how it works. Let's say in boxes that for some strange reason, all of the votes in a batch except one were for Biden. And they were supposed to be mail-in ballots, but they weren't folded. In a court of law, other than my testament, these weren't folded, and it was this number, I would have had, let's say, 100,000 certified eyewitness accounts of, holy shit, this was supposed to be a mail-in, it wasn't folded, and 200 votes in the batch, and 198 of them, 199 of them for Biden, one Trump. And this happened X times in a row. Can you imagine the power that would have been wielded in court with those certified jurats? The system cut that out. They did not want that paper trail. Now, we go over to the other example. If you were to look everything that spun after my work, everything that spun out after my work, and by the way, it would have been the right format of affidavits, and you would have had hundreds of people saying, I witnessed this, here it is. Yes, I saw it. I handled this piece of paper. It wouldn't have been, just up to technology. My job's to do it right. Once that word got out in audit communities, what is called election integrity communities, every single team out there, canvas teams, remember all of a sudden you got canvas teams set up at every state, don't do audits with canvas. Well, every one of the people, and there's many of them sitting in this discussion right now, were required to sign non-disclosures because they realized people like me go to the public, am transparent, and tell people the facts. They got everybody to do all that work under non-disclosures, and those people that found things and did things cannot talk about it. That too was an internal rig by the system. So I hope I answered that one sufficiently. Let's see, we'll do three more. Let's see. Carrot cake and ice cold milk. I don't drink milk anymore, but I'm with you, Joe. Carrot cake and ice cold milk. Yes, Milk Hay is great. I literally love Milk Hay. Milk Hay is great. Let's see what else. What type of law does Blim even specialize in? He seemed way over his head. Brian Blim, which some people say is I just said her name, Shelby Bush's brother. I think she said that. I don't know what Brian Blim's specialty is. I just know he got brought in. He was brought in by somebody I consider just a rat bastard into the Arizona audit. I don't know his specialty. He started early on bad-mouthing me, like he was sick on it. He was the only attorney left standing in Arizona that would take the case. I think that was by design. But his website, which was Blim Law or whatever, it may still be that way today, Blim Law, was a Chinese porn site. And I would message Blim, your website, your own website goes to a Chinese porn site. Do you not even control your own website? Come on, this really looks bad when people look you up and they look you in the attorney registers and here's your thing, and click it and it goes to a Chinese porn site. He never addressed it. Called me all kinds of names, but it may still to this day. I don't know. I haven't checked it in years. I don't know. but it did. Somebody asked me about Obi. It's a red flame Siamese rescue I have. He got attacked by an owl, pretty bad shape. He's bright-eyed again. He's recovering. The wounds are healing up, but he's probably going to have a massive scar on his head. But he's doing well. The net effect of being a farm cat is he can go outside during the day, but at nighttime he has to be brought in. He had to be locked in a bathroom. He had to be taught how to use a litter box. But he's good. Now, the cat's name is Sinatra because he has incredible piercing blue eyes, but you don't call a cat Sinatra, so I dubbed him Obi, O-B-E, O Blue Eyes. But he survived. Oh, by the way, somebody said one of the things you need to know, and thank you for reposting this stream. This is about the only time we get to talk. Part of the preservation of the records of the Arizona audit. Let me show you what that means real quick. Hang on.
Not fixing 2020 will damn our nation forever. The historic Maricopa County full forensic audit effort processed 20,895,610 digital and forensic images of varying formats, resulted in 208 million individual evidence-proof files. The system processed over 58 billion forensic measurements, resulting in over 2 trillion individual base computations. No hopium, no hype, just hardcore forensic evidence. Please make sure the Maricopa County Full Forensic Audit Archives survive. Donate now. So if you want what happened in the 2020 election fixed, then please donate to protect and secure this historic evidence. We can't do it without you. We need you. America needs you. Our future needs you. Please donate now.
One of the things, and you guys came up with it, makes perfect sense, is we will make sure as all of this survives, and God bless you, all the people that are making sure this survives, because part of the deep state stuff is to run you out of money. And it's been, I did a contract for $210,000 that we spent $3 million executing. But another advantage of making sure these things survive in proper chain of custody is for us to turn them over to the Trump Presidential Library for History, which means anybody in the future can come around and duplicate the technology, verify this stuff, study ballots, and understand. So that's another important reason of keeping those things alive. Hevelin said, what do you think about the whole Trump 2028 buzz? Is Trump trolling the left? And I saw General Flynn even suggested this. Legally, and President Trump acknowledged just maybe, even 48 hours ago that they're telling him he can't run again in 2028. So I think it's a combination of mass trolling. And just to be honest with you, I don't know what to expect out of J.D. Vance's heir apparent. I don't. So I don't know what to tell you on that, other than I think a distinct reality of him running 2028. I just don't think it's going to happen. And I also don't think would be good for his health. I just don't think it would be good for his health. In fact, I think it would be detrimental on his health. Zodman says, interested in impressions of Antarctica. There you go. So Joint Base Scott. Antarctica is a fantastic place. Many of you have probably seen in my exploration stuff, me in these various remote places and the sled dogs and everything else. I think it's one of the most important emerging frontiers in science and history, and where we see in this natural trend of the planet, some of the glaciers receding, we're seeing mankind was there and finding all kinds of different artifacts. So I think it's one of the greatest frontiers in the world. And I hope there is exploration teams and funding really that somebody does it, right? That somebody does it. But a very interesting fact is occurring with glaciers receding, which is the natural cycle of the Earth. They are starting to find tools and all kinds of interesting things of man being there. But I tell you something I'm very interested in. So if you were to look at the current artifact record, now I started talking about this, I don't know, 10 years ago. You can forensically identify obsidian and chert. You know what you make arrowheads out of? And I've already proved this. But you can use advanced science to look at the arrowhead and find exactly where that chert or obsidian emerged. You can ID it down to a place, right? ID it down to the place. I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that there are obsidian artifacts. Hang on. Forgive me for walking off screen. Because I'm going to show you how I know this. And so if we were to scientifically, using technology to identify cherts and obsidian, you know, volcanic glass, I think you will see there has been a trade in obsidian way back in ancient times. Right? Way back in ancient times. And so I think we can track obsidian, spearheads, arrows, and we can confirm beyond a reasonable doubt that in a past we know nothing of, they were trading globally obsidian, which will show mankind is more connected than other. Okay, now put a pin in that. If you've ever been like the Texas Hill Country or stuff, do you know how you can either see obsidian when you cut into the earth and you see that glass layer? Have any of you ever seen native obsidian, right? You follow me? Now, when the rocks of obsidian through volcanic action or tidal action or ancient riverbeds, when it rolls out these pieces of chert or obsidian, and I want to double check something. Hang on 1 second. 1 second, I got to look something up. Okay. And so you see it in levels, in glass levels. And of course, obsidian, if you know how to cut arrowheads, is just like freaking, it's dangerous, right? You got black obsidian, you have rainbow obsidian, all this stuff. So I think in Find, we will find there was a trade, right? A trade on it. Okay. So that's number one. Okay. That's number one. And so I'd love to map that project. It's one of the archaeological research projects I would like to use. Now, if you've ever walked away, or if you've ever walked through the Texas Hill Country, and you have where obsidian is combined with caliche, calcium carbonate or carbonate or silica precipitates that come out of the land, those pieces, okay, to come out and be a piece of obsidian that is now encased in that white casing. Have you ever seen that before? It's got a white casing on it. That's surface oxidation. Surface oxidation. If any of you, put it in chat. Have you ever seen like rocks in the hill country or whatever, and they're kind of white, and you break them open, and then you'll see the obsidian, the volcanic glass inside. Many people have seen this just laying out on the ground, right? That's commonly referred to as chert or other stuff. That's the encasing. Okay. Now, I won't give you the scientific formula of it. It has growth law, right? But if you were to look at the growth law around it, the minimum to even get to hundreds of a nanometer, right, takes 100,000 years. Okay. So a heavily encased rock, you're looking at that would take many millenniums, hundreds of thousands of years. You with me? Okay. When you find an arrowhead, the obsidian's formed by a volcano. Have any of you ever found an arrowhead or seen an arrowhead that somebody's found? Anybody? Put it in chat. If you found an arrowhead or know somebody who's found an arrowhead laying in a mound or whatever, there's a lot of people found arrowheads. Now, you've seen those, right? You've seen them. They found them, and they're ancient things. Now, here's something I just told you. An arrowhead, anything in flint, obsidian that was cut. Now, if you left that out, and you left it out in the open and on the ground, okay? Open and on the ground. It would take, at minimum, several 100,000 years for that obsidian to turn white. So you know what an arrowhead looks like on the ground. You know what a flint looks like, or a spearhead. You see them in excavations all the time. Here's a spearhead. Now, if that spearhead was left out in the ground, and remember, they're found in the ground, they'll be 1,000 years old or several hundred years old from the Indians or whatever. But for that obsidian to transform to become encased in that carbonate, which is where it turns it white, it'll flake off, right? That's the silica or carbonate incrustation. That's how you normally find the rocks. This is basically a killing axe. This thing weighs about 8 pounds. 8 pounds. Right? Now, as you can see, the carbonation's all over it. It is encased down to the millimeters, and I'm going to show you the end. Look how deep that encasement is. See that encasement? I have a big head, but here you go. If you got hit with this, it would take your head off. But see the carbonate encasement? This means this thing, this big, was possibly carved 500,000 years ago. A time when they said nobody was making tools. 500,000 years ago. So that means mankind 500,000 years ago were making advanced cutting tools and weapons. That predates anything we've ever known. I possess these artifacts. I'll show you one other here in a minute. I'll end with 2 artifacts. And so one of the things, right? One of the things that I'd really like to research better is what's called the iridium layer. And Zod, isn't that a specimen? Look at that. This is magnificent. This is only one of my ancient exploration specimens. Anyway, it shouldn't exist. But it also, what is about this, if you were to look at modern versions, they would have been about 1/3 of this size. This was wielded by somebody of incredible size, right? Somebody of massive stature. Anyway, we have this phenomenon around the earth that they typically associate with the younger Dryas and stuff like that. I won't get into that. But you have a very initial interesting thing in the strata. You ever walked out where they cut through the side of a mountain or whatever? That basically you see all the different layers, which is how we stratify, date things. And we'll find these artifacts in these stratas. And then we have this interesting event that where we have this iridium layer. Now, here's how artifacts work. You'll find the deeper you go, you find cruder artifacts. In other words, the more mankind and people, and I'm going to show you one more, but the more mankind and people practice the art of like cutting, right, arrowheads, the better they get. And so the higher they are in the ground, the better they are. Now you can watch man's manufacturing capabilities get better. So they'll start out crude and they'll get better and better and better and better and better and better and better as mankind evolves in his manufacturing techniques. Except we've got this really unexplained thing. Okay. Yeah, Kitty, I saw the news with the news in Jerusalem. There's a lot coming out of Jerusalem now proving the Bible. Media is trying to suppress it, but archaeology has advanced so far, it's nuts. Anyway, so you start with rough things and they get better, 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 better. And then we have this very interesting layer that goes all the way around the earth, and it's called the iridium layer. And it's basically where we had a ELE, an ELE, and that's called an extinction level event, an ELE. And so iridium comes from space. It means that an asteroid hit Earth, and all of the debris that was thrown up, little particulates of debris, right? Fall down to Earth. No, this is not I'm telling you right now, if I was to run my hand across this serrated teeth, it would cut my fingers off. If I really put pressure, it's just not a crude weapon. This thing is so razor sharp, it's nuts. This is a killing machine, not crude. It's not a hammer. I mean, this thing will just sever you, even at its old age. Anyway, we got this iridium layer. So now that you understand, they go crude, they get better, they get better. When you get down to the iridium level, which basically says a lot of the stuff on the planet died, when you get right under that level and keep digging, you find advanced tools. So here's what it is. Mankind had advanced, was making incredible tools, massive asteroid impact, obliterated Earth, and man had to restart again. Isn't that awesome? Right? Isn't that awesome? I'm going to show you one other artifact in my collection. Hang on. Now, this one comes out of ancient China, right? And again, you can date this way jade, not the dancer stripper, although she's great, right? But you can date jades and everything else. Well, if you were to go back in Chinese culture, you know, they replace each succession dynasty wiped out history, right? And yes, the Jewish Bible says our calendar year is 5786. Earth was created 6,000 years ago. I'm going to give you the answer. You can date jade. In the Hongshan dynasties and other dynasties that are left remnants that are now being found in ancient Chinese digs, which is one of the places I like to work, you know, do some work. For years, I've been talking about this. They talk about a time where man existed with other mankind's, hominids, Neanderthals, etc. I have all of these artifacts, and I'm just going to show you one. If you were to look right now, you could Google it right now and say, what are the new findings regarding Neanderthals interbreeding with humans? It's one of the biggest rages going on right now because of a key find that was found in Spain, right? And they're talking about, wow, you know, Neanderthals, cavemen, must have coexisted with man and commingled. Well, I've been saying this for years, and it's because I have all these jade artifacts that show Chinese archers and hunters on a hunt with dogs being led by Neanderthals, but nobody paid attention. But check this out. This is a jade piece. I know what you're thinking, and yes, it is. It's the Humpty Dump, right? But look at their faces and their face structures. These are Neanderthals. Mankind didn't make up images. Mankind carved in images what they saw, what they experienced. And so I have artifacts that show what you would consider to be modern man hunting and interacting with Neanderthals, and including breeding with Neanderthals, right? And so I'm telling you, there's so much more we don't know about our world, right? But you can look up Neanderthals and mankind and interbreeding, and they're now basically proving it genetically. And so I'll go back to the Jewish calendar and my sweet hot Jewish from afar, and our calendar years, being 5,786, that's our year. How can I reconcile something 500,000 years old? And it's because we already know what we were. I think sometimes people take the creation story thinking it was a void of nothing, and then God, separated the firmaments and the mist, and the land came up and whatever. I have a different interpretation. Doesn't change anything about God, because this is all about man. What was Earth? Put it in chat. Here's my question for you. What was Earth? What was Earth? Oh, yeah. This is not a trans woman or a trans man. It's etched in stone, baby. What was Earth? Kitty said a rock. That's not what I'm asking for. What was Earth? Somebody said a ball of gas. That's not true. What was Earth? What was, if you had to look at Earth and you're looking at the history of Earth, somebody says magma. Nope, you're still getting it wrong. Somebody says void. You're still getting it wrong. Nothing. That's just not true. What was Earth? We have absolute proof of it. What or who inhabited the planet Earth? I know people are saying it was void and without form. I'm about to give you what that actually means. But we have definitive proof what inhabited Earth. Somebody says chaos. You're thinking what you've been taught versus what's real, what an energy. What was on Earth? Who and what inhabited Earth? You know this. What inhabited Earth? Massive. You say Adam and Eve. Hang on, I'm about to give you this. You said Adam and Eve, said Garden of Eden. That's not what I'm talking about. Dinosaurs. Now, you've seen dinosaurs, right or wrong. Have you seen dinosaurs? Have you ever seen an artifact of a dinosaur, etc.? You have. So on Earth, we had dinosaurs. Yes or no? Do you understand that, right? We had dinosaurs. Am I right? Okay. So here's why I tell you that, because it's not a trick question. It's not a trick question at all. It just isn't. Okay. It's a factual question. Now, the other question I have for you, okay, is how are fossils created? So there was no trick question in there. Okay. There was not a single trick question in there at all. How is a fossil created? Just tell me the mechanics of creating a fossil. Does an animal just die and fall over and it becomes a fossil? The answer is no. The answer is no. In order for a fossil to be created, it needs a cataclysmic event, massive pressure, and time. A fossil is not just created over time. It must have a catastrophic event, an instantaneous event of tremendous pressure, and then time. So I proved this theory again, Archaeology World said I was nuts. If you were to look at all of the dinosaur tracks that are encased in stone, okay, across the globe, they're all over the place. You'll see them going up stone mountains and stuff. You'll see those dino tracks. Well, we took the time to plot them. And ancient archaeologists said, well, that's just the hunting grounds. No, it's not. It's not the hunting grounds. Because you see all types of dinosaurs together, all sizes of dinosaurs together, not just one type of dinosaur, one type of thing. Okay? So if you were to look at, and you can do this yourself, if we were to look and just set a directional on the footprints we see in stone, okay? Because remember, you don't get a fossil unless you get time. Montana, you got it right. All of these footprints move synchronously in the same direction. So it's like a spoke. And you can plot them. And in that plot, they go they're going away from massive asteroid impacts. And so what's going on is the dinosaurs are running for their life. Why? Because think of what's the word I'm looking for? Not typhoon, but anyway, the big wall of water and mud, because it's water and mud, right? Massive, growling down, everything's been blown up. And it's not travel patterns. They're all fleeing. Now, what they're fleeing is an ELE, an extinction level event. They're running for their lives. Now, when this extinction level event and the dirt and mud and everything catches them, they're now subsumed in this dirt and pressure. And so they tumble and roll and tumble and roll and tumble and roll until it kind of stops, a tsunami. Thank you for giving that. And all of that pressure of the earth is now on that dinosaur. And so what happens is this massive pressure, kind of think of a printing press. In that massive pressure, it does a very interesting thing. It kind of preserves the animal. But what happens is, because there's so much pressure, think of using a French press. The minerals of the earth pseudomorph into the beast, which means the living tissue, the water that we're all made up of, slowly leaks out and minerals trickle in. And that's how we get a fossil. Okay, that's how we get a fossil. Now, the reason I tell you this, and I'm going to the Jewish calendar date, 5786, and my Jewish princess was saying, well, how do you reconcile these things when Earth was supposedly created 6,000 years ago? It's because I look back, and I look back at basically an obliteration event. And something happened in the world. Something happened in the world that was a massive extinction level event. Now, it paved the way for mankind. We can't coexist with dinosaurs. I know you understand that, right? We can't coexist with dinosaurs. So it paved the way for mankind to come into being. If you understand that, and you understand the Great Deluge, which every culture in the world has the Noah flood story, every one of them, their own variations of it, and it tells the same thing. The earth was destroyed, a darkness came over the earth, it rained and rained and rained and rained, the earth flooded, everything went away, the land disappeared, and then finally a little land peak, and there were just a few people, and mankind repopulated the earth. It's common everywhere, right? It's common everywhere. And yes, ELEs have hit our earth many times. I think we're more akin to Mad Max than anything else. We're the survivors. We're not the progenitors. Anyway, when you understand it in that concept, something dramatically happened to Earth. Something dramatically happened to Earth, whether it's an extinction level event or whether it's the fallen being exiled and thrown to Earth. Everything basically was kind of wiped out. And then we had this very interesting jumpstart event. Out of nowhere, in a synchronous manner, we got all of this huge influx of DNA and variations that went poof. And our world that we live in came into being. Came into being. I equate mankind's reign and the Noah event. I don't put them in those same windows. We know that God created man. We know that there were good and bad on the earth. We know from the Bible there were giants on earth, the Nephilim and the men of old. The Bible tells you. And so what I personally think happened and how I count for the timelines is that God saw fit where beast, very dangerous, horrible beast, etc., angels or otherwise, were exiled, and earth was a very violent place. Just massive beasts, etc. Right? And the Bible tells you about leviathans and everything else. You're right. That particular planet, which is now our planet, that's what Earth was in its ancient history. And in that, whatever you want to call primordial soup, we, meaning mankind, got created, Adam and Eve, Garden of Eden, but it was a spontaneous growth of all this DNA. But even in our ancient texts, it clearly tells you there was something before it, and they were big and old and dangerous and horrible and whatever, and giants. Now, the reason you don't know this from an archaeological standpoint is because if archaeology taught you this, they would actually be, right? And some people say, they try to explain a day is 1,000 years and 1,000 years in it is a day. I got that. I'm putting time aside. Archaeology doesn't teach you the truth because you'll learn many things. The most thing is you'll learn we've done this before, and you'll learn we've destroyed our fucking selves before. There's nothing new under the sun. Mankind has obliterated itself. And I won't go into that. I'll do a show on one day. But the reason archaeology doesn't teach you these things, and I'm going to try to share something on my screen. The reason archaeology doesn't teach you these things is because you'll learn the truth. All over our planet is the ancient biblical proof of the men of old, the Nephilim, the whole bit. This is a footprint. In fact, there's multiple footprints. They're all over the planet. Archaeology has hidden this to mankind. This thing right here is in an ancient sandstone. It is not carved. It's sandstone carved from like a beachhead that is so old that when the tectonic plates crashed in South Africa, it pushed these things up vertical, and they actually kind of go up a cliff and stuff. The ancients there, for thousands of years, have always called this the footprint of God. In fact, if you look in the bottom of the footprint, you'll see they do money offerings and stuff to it. These giant footprints, this particular person would have been a statue, having a stature of probably 50 to 60 feet tall, which is exactly what the Bible has told us. But archaeology doesn't cover this, and you can find them everywhere. They always try to say they're carved. Well, this is sandstone. And you can see that this foot went in a motion walking. That's why it pushed up the sand around the toes and did the impressions. And it pushed up that little piece of stone form and just kept on walking. Well, these were at a time that whatever happened at an extinction level event encased these and changed it. And then as the tectonic plates pushed it up, it revealed them again. The flood threw everything in the world together. And so you and I, it has nothing to do with Christian faith. It has nothing to do with biblical faith. In fact, it codifies the Bible. And this is why ancient archaeology does not teach you these things, does not embrace these things. They say they're all hoaxes, just like there's no such thing as election fraud. It's the truth. It's the truth of where we come from. It's the truth of what mankind is. It's the truth of where we are in this process. We've been here an incredibly long time. And where you and I are in this mix is we're the remnants. We're the remnants on a planet that was filled with beasts, that was horrible and dangerous and volcanic and fiery and sulfur-ridden and whatever, where I believe the third of the heavens was thrown to. That's what Earth was. You can call it hell because Earth is hell, right? And that's why Earth is and has always been Satan's domain. And out of this, in this fight of good or evil, because of extinction level events, mankind was spawned by divine creation and divine intervention, and here we are. But we are the remnants. And that's the problem with society. Every society wants to believe they're the beginning of everything, and it's just a fucking lie. And they hide it. And even more is hidden, like these footprints, these places. I can show them to you all around the planet. They hide them because you will clearly see that document, and Kitty, thank you for bringing up, the Bible and confirming it and those artifacts found. There are so many things that confirm that thing called the Bible is absolutely real. It's put together at different times, and there's a little bit of jumble and stuff to it, but it's true. And that's why archaeology does not acknowledge these things. But more importantly, the reason it doesn't acknowledge these things is because even atheists and other stuff will have to understand we didn't evolve, we were created, which basically means God's real. And governments, peoples, rulers, and countries do not want you to believe there is something you're accountable to higher than them. And that's what it's all about. Anyway, I don't know. I guess it was Kitty that brought us into that stuff, but there's amazing stuff out there. This is what I spent my life doing, right? All of my life, I had retired very early, and I was about exploration. I was chasing these things down around the world. That's why I have these artifacts. I'm chasing the truth of what are we? Where do we come from? And then, of course, I put my world on hold to do my best, as flawed as it is. As flawed as it is, folks, because if I'm telling you it's flawed. To do my best to try to save what we are, our world, to be good people, what we're expected to be. And so that pause and moment of time of my work was so because this mankind interference stuff is trash. And it pits and divides people. And that's why I dedicated my life and just made a pivot and dedicated to truth and uncovering the truth and exposing the truth. Anyway, I appreciate everybody. I got meetings. I got to go. Appreciate everybody joining me today. Ask me anything. I wish I could have got to more questions. We'll do this more often. Please support our work. I love you all. Thanks.
Not fixing 2020 will damn our nation forever. The historic Maricopa County full forensic audit effort processed 20,895,610 digital and forensic images of varying formats, resulted in 208 million individual evidence-proof files. The system processed over 58 billion forensic measurements, resulting in over 2 trillion individual base computations. No hopium, no hype, just hardcore forensic evidence. Please make sure the Maricopa County Full Forensic Audit Archives survive. Donate now. So if you want what happened in the 2020 election fixed, then please donate to protect and secure this historic evidence. We can't do it without you. We need you. America needs you. Our future needs you. Please donate now.
Fight for free and fair elections. Invented scan the ballots of kinematic artifact detection. You love to read and learn, travel and explore. You're a fearless, braveheart patriot who's opened doors. You are courage, you're our voice. Jovan, we thank you for what you're fighting for. You're our warrior. You are brave like a lion. You're David fighting Goliath, couldn't ask for more. You're our warrior. Think of what you've done for you, for me, for our country. You'll go down in history as our warrior. You lead by God and always do what's right. In the battle for our nation, you lead the fight. We pray for your safety, the armor of God to protect you from all of us. Here's a thank you for all that you do. You are courage, you're our voice. Jovan, we thank you for what you're fighting for. You're our warrior. You are brave like a lion. You're David fighting Goliath, couldn't ask for more. You're our warrior. Think of what you've done for you, for me, for our country. You'll go down in history as our warrior. Jovan, you're a hero we stand behind. We're inspired by the fire inside your eyes. American proud, we know you'll fight till your dying day. And we'll always stand behind you through everything. You are courage, you're our voice. Jovan, we thank you for what you're fighting for. You're our warrior. You are brave like a lion. You're David fighting Goliath, couldn't ask for more. You're our warrior. Think of what you've done for you, for me, for our country. You'll go down in history as our